Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Late Night Unite. Hello, everyone, and welcome to
Wow, I've
another
got
edition. Myself playing in my ears because I'm a genius, and by genius I mean an absolute idiot. Um, just off the rails, off the rip, off the start. Here we go. Kirk Dupes next to me. We're starting it over. Late Night Unite. I'm here with Feppy. Feppy, holy smokes, save me, kid. Just say hi. Do something. Get me off the mic.
Hey guys, I'm Feppy. I'm the current support player for Team TOS. I just recently got on the new team, and I'm really excited to discuss the future of the team.
And I'm glad you're here too, because there is kind of a whirlwind to talk about, even in just these last couple days from when you agreed to be on. I made the initial tweet, and then it's like, whoa, that's kind of information's backwards. So we're gonna go ahead and retcon some of that and make that right here tonight. But
Oh
first,
yeah.
but first and foremost, Feppy, tell us a little bit about yourself. You can go as far back in the Wayback Machine as you want to bring us up to speed to right now.
Yeah, so I've been playing video games pretty much my entire life, but never really was super interested in playing competitively because I just never found the right game. And I was always a PC gamer. So I really was not very good at PC games, though. I don't have the fastest reaction times. I was never the most precise. And then I've been playing Heroes of the Storm for about 5 or 6 years casually, and watching players like Zugrock and Lutano play professionally. I was like, that'd be really cool if I could do that, but I'm not good at the game. And then Pokemon Unite comes out, and I'm like, wait, that's a MOBA on a controller. I could probably do that. So I'm just like, all right, I'll just see if how good I am and what I can do, and then everything just snowballed from there.
Well, it's certainly snowballed successfully for you, and you've made strides in the community for sure. And actually, a tip to the cap to you, Goof on the pre-draft sesh for the Unite for Ukraine draft when we kind of did the pre-desk analysis stuff. He dropped you as somebody that's one of the most underrated and potentially disrespected support players that we've got going in the scene right now. So if that's not an endorsement, I don't know what is. But Feppy, before we go too far, this is a question I like to ask everybody. Where does the gamer tag Feppy come from?
So back when I was like 5 or 6, my parents introduced me to my first ever MOBA, and I had to pick a name for my character. And I don't know where 5-year-old me came up with the name Feppy, but 5-year-old me decided that Feppy was gonna be my in-game name. Figured it out really early, and I've pretty much stuck with it ever since.
Well, there you go. You know what? It's nothing like a tenured gamer tag story. As long as it's what some people are like, I don't know, elf potato. It's like, I don't know. I just use the Xbox Live like random generator. Great foresight, good branding. Shout out to 5-year-old Feppy for getting it done, getting you done, setting you up for some success.
For
Feppy,
sure, for sure.
Feppy, tell me a little something. Let's spin a yarn here. Let's walk through your little competitive path in Pokemon Unite. You have changed teams a little bit. We'll talk about your current team here shortly, but kind of give us the how you kind of broke into the scene and actually got picked up by some competitive teams, and then we'll kind of discuss the road forward.
I I definitely took a very interesting path. I started as a Ultra 4 Mime One Trick, and I played only Guard Swap Confusion Mime top lane, and that's all I played. I played nothing else. I basically took that all the way from veteran to Ultra 4, and eventually I decided, hey, I seem like I'm pretty good at this game. At the time, I was Ultra 4, so not really, but and I got picked up by Team DVS was the original team I was on by Heat BBX. He gave me a tryout, thought I was good enough to play, and I just started going from there. And of course, at the time, Mime was thought of as a support, so I was instantly forced onto Eldegoss duty because the team did not have a support player, and I've been stuck ever since.
Just hard lock in the Eldegoss stun as so many other support players across the land are. Um,
Can't escape. They release Hoopa, and I still can't get out.
just so much hope. Literally, the ring was there for you to reach out and grab, and just slid right a little bit further away from you. So you're on this team with Heat BB, and of course, you eventually part ways. Where's the next step in your journey?
So half of that team got the chance to play with A Drive quite a lot, and we played with A Drive, you know, 3 4 times a week on his streams, and he eventually got to the point where he was like, "Yo, I like playing with you guys, and I kind of want to dabble in the competitive scene, play a little bit, you know, get some content out there for the stream. How about you guys come play with me and be on my team?" And that's when we became Team Shiny. And ever since then, we've been acquired, you know, good players like Rin and Retsu and Faz, and just bolstered the roster from there.
So, who kind of, if you can kind of give me the texture of the team when you first started playing along with A Drive, kind of who rotated in when? Because it kind of seems like you were there from the jump, and one of the,
Yeah.
obviously you're somewhere else now, but who kind of rotated in, who rotated out as this thing kind of got some steam behind it?
Yeah, so originally we had Elo as our jungler, we had Heat as our top laner, and then we had Mr. Moo. I missed that guy. Yeah, Mr. Moo was attacker. I was the support player. A Drive was our tank player, and then we eventually picked up Rin to play jungle for us. And Elo was taking a break at the time because he was pursuing college. And then we brought in Retsu to play top lane and moved Heat to bot lane attacker. And then we picked up Faz, and eventually Faz replaced A Drive as the tank player.
What happened to Monsieur Moo, the classiest mooster around? What happened to Mr. Moo?
He got ganked by Life. Unfortunately,
Well,
he had to leave the scene.
well, you know what? Things like life tend to happen to human beings. So, pouring
Yeah.
out for the homie Mr. Moo. I hope you're doing well out there wherever you seem to be. So now A Drive is at least cognizant enough that say, hey, we've got a lot of talent going here. I actually need to be maybe out of the rotation, maybe the first person off the bench here. So they ride the pine a little bit as Team Shiny gets some speed here. And you guys did win some pretty hefty tournaments, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah, we had some very good placements in our peak. We won first place at G4, which is the first ever true draft tournament that was ran, and we also placed second overall in the Shiny League in the finals. So that we had some very good placements. We didn't have many placements because we didn't play a lot of tournaments, but in the tournaments we played, we always made a very big impact.
If we were to kind of do a League of Legends esque thing with all the players with like total money made, I mean Team Shiny had to be up there pretty high. Could they not, or wouldn't they be just
Uh,
based on like the
so
huge impact of those two tournaments?
so after we won G4 and Shiny League, I think Retsu and Rin were the two most winning players in terms of prize money.
Is there
They
actually
won a lot.
is that
Sorry, go ahead.
information out there somewhere?
I don't think so. I think we had just done the math and looked at how much we had, that they had made, and they had made a lot of money at that time.
Well, I mean, it helps to be on top, at least in the financial sense. So not bad. So Feppy, you got to go along with that ride, and we're not going to forecast the future too much, but obviously you're somewhere else. So things
Mhm.
had to either go off the rails or changed, or the approach or stylistic. What happened that ended up taking Team Shiny, which is now Blossom, but you split off of there and you found your way into a different direction.
Yeah, so there was a period of multiple weeks where I was having some bad health issues, and on top of that, I was dramatically underperforming, and we also had some arguments and some debates about playstyle and philosophy where we just couldn't reconcile our differences. So we just figured that it was time to for me to move on and move to a new team, and it was a mutual decision. Nobody was really upset about it. You know, we're all still friends. I still keep up with most of those guys. We talk a lot, so we're all still good. It made sense for me to move on to a new team, and I'm very happy where I am as well. So I am greatly looking forward to this opportunity.
Well, let's talk about that new opportunity. Team TOS, which I jokingly said before we started. I'm going to call it Teams of Service, but you're going to sort me out real quick. Team TOS, what's that stand for?
Yeah, so Team TOS stands for Terms of Scolded. We made it kind of as a joke name because of our teammate Scolded. We have a motto in our team and just trust and Scolded. So we figured we'd do a little funny play on that.
Well, the account was made. I think I jokingly, not jokingly, but I was kind of curious. I was like, man, they have a Twitter now. That's kind of dope. Check it out. I mean, that was
Mhm.
made like last November or something like that. Like this
Yeah.
Team TOS, that philosophy has to be ingrained for
Oh
quite
yeah.
some time. So glad to see it make come full circle here. For those of you that don't know out there, for just the shortest window, it felt like Glitch Energy was who your team was going to be.
Mhm.
Oh, it was the Sucker Bunch Twitter that changed. Oh, genius. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, thanks, Shrugzix. Appreciate you. So, Glitch Energy was under that banner for a bit. That was like Sucker Bunch, then Glitch Energy. Then they split paths into Sucker Bunch and then Glitch Energy. And now
Mhm.
Glitch Energy is now Team TOS. So, what kind of happened in that? We'll call it your own little mini roster mania that kind of shook everybody back out into two different teams, whereas it kind of felt like it was one team, then a
Yeah.
different team, and then back to two, and then two completely separate entities.
So I don't really know much about what happened before I arrived. I didn't really follow that, or I didn't really care to ask. I'm not. That's not what I'm interested in doing. I'm more interested in looking at and pursuing the future. So I honestly don't know about any of that sort of stuff.
Well, that makes
But
it easy.
what I do know is we definitely had some interesting roster situations. The Originally I was going to be picked up as the tank player, and that's where a lot of people have been confused, is that I was going to be the tank player for this team. And then we had the unfortunate situation of Ack acknowledged our support player at the time. He also got ganked by Life, so he can no longer play. So we had to scramble to find a solution. So we ended up just deciding, I've been playing support for 6 months. I can go back to LDGL. I don't mind that much. And we decided it just made sense to pick up another tank. So we decided to pick up Kilo. He's a really, really fresh new face that not a lot of people know about, but I think he's a very, very solid tank, and he's very underrated right now.
Well, I mean, I'm glad your team found its way amidst kind of, again, like I mentioned, this little mini roster mania you found yourself to. Unfortunately, you put yourself back in LD jail, and hopefully one day you'll find your way out. But talk to us a little bit about this current iteration of the team, Team TOS. Who's on it again? I know you mentioned Scolded.
Mhm.
If you don't mind, just kind of running us through who the squad is as it sits right now.
Yeah, so our current roster is, we have Sanji as our top laner, we have Scolded as our jungler slash secondary attacker, we have Muck as our primary attacker and secondary jungler, and then we have me on support, and we have Akilo as our tank, and First is currently the sub for the roster.
So you guys have a sub as well. First, no slouch
Mhm.
at all. That's a very potent squad, and of course, we haven't seen much
Yeah.
from Akilo. You mentioned that, a fresh face on the scene. Everybody's got to be raring to see what they can
Oh
bring to
yeah.
the table stepping into this tank role. And of course, if the confidence of such strong players, or I guess more tenured players as yourself, says, yeah, we're all in on this kid. So they sound like they're going to be fine. Where is your all sights moving forward? Obviously a bit of a hiccup, we'll say, in the March Cup qualifiers here. I don't believe, please correct me if I'm wrong, that you guys have qualified for the March finals. Um, that
No, so this team did not qualify
okay.
at
Uh,
all. So
well,
we're our sights are entirely set on AOS Cup right now. That's what we're looking at, and that's what we're focusing on.
so with the focus on the AS Cup and it being so far away. I mean, they just announced that they actually moved it back yet another week. So the AS
Yeah.
Cup is actually happening in the first week of May. That's pushing on 6 weeks of practice. Working through with the team, coming up with strategies. Obviously, paying attention to what happens in March finals. Is there any concern about burnout for the squad, or are the sights set so hard that you can't let that bring you down?
So we definitely have an issue where we're a fairly new team in terms of our synergies and how long people play with each other. I mean, I probably played about 10 games with Sanji, for example, before I joined the roster. So there was at the start there was almost no synergy with most of the people on the roster with everyone else just because none of us have really played together before. But I don't think many of us are concerned about burnout. We have a very, very good environment, and a lot of us are all, very chill players that are all very, very encouraging, and we all have a ton of game knowledge, and we all have an environment where we can bring all of our opinions and we can discuss things as we want to without any issues, and it's been really helping and preventing burnout quite a lot because nobody feels like their voice isn't heard.
Well, I mean, that's got to be great, right? Especially because you're trying to make up that lost time. I don't want to say lost time, but make up on some teams that have been around, since the game's release, and that's not an easy bridge to just immediately cross. So glad to see that you won't fall to the burnout bug, and that you guys can make a strong push not only in your practice, scrims, whatever, but also into the AOS Cup when you get there. I guess they're the qualifiers into the AOS Cup, but of course, I mean, let's stay positive here. AOS Cup is the ride, so we're gonna get you there, at least in the mental checkbox. What is kind of some of like the biggest hurdles you see for it being such a fresh team, with some fresh synergies to work through? Of course, you've got a lot of tricks in up your sleeve to get that sorted, but certainly there's got to be some headwinds that you guys are facing right now and trying to overcome.
100%. In the biggest issue for us, but I also think it's our biggest strength, is that all of us have come from teams or other games with dramatically different play styles, and we can all combine and improve our play styles and teach each other how to play better at each other's play styles. So, for example, I was on Team Shiny for a long time, which is I don't even think it's debatable that Team Shiny was the most aggressive team in terms of compositions and play styles. We were consistently making the most aggressive play at all times. And you have a team like a Felly on back in the day that Muck played for, and they were more of a like macro opposite side of the map sort of team that liked to flip objectives and try to steal value away. And then, of course, you have Scolded, who is well known for basically taking his teams, putting them on his back, and just 1v5 carrying squads, right? And Sanji is well known for just being a mechanical god, but not having a ton of intelligent macro plays. And Akilo comes from League, and he has a very, very high sense of macro, but he's generally a fairly passive sort of player. So we look at all of our strengths and all of our weaknesses, and we can take the strengths of players like Sanji, who is well known, right, as not necessarily the best macro player, and we can turn him into a macro god because we have players like Akilo to help shore up his weaknesses. And we can do stuff like take me as a player and temper my aggression and make it so that I'm not inting all the time. And we have the ability to really combine and make our own philosophy.
So, in terms of headwinds, is it really just figuring out how you coalesce that successfully, while you're navigating those, or I guess balancing the different traits that you all bring to the table?
Oh, 100%. The biggest problem, and I think still it's our biggest strength, is that we have the ability to adapt and overcome any meta that comes up. If there's ever a super passive and safe meta, Team Shiny or Team Blossom probably isn't going to perform super well, just because they're known for being a super aggressive team. If there is a super aggressive meta, Team Blossom's going to do really well, but maybe TTV isn't going to do as well. We have the players and the knowledge from multiple different teams to really make any meta shine for us.
I, I'm excited. I'm really you mentioned a kilo and their macro ability, and is that so? With what you mentioned with them and the different skill sets that you all bring, and of course you just mentioned your ability to swing into whichever direction the meta goes. Does that mean that the shot caller changes, or do you? Who is the shot caller? Does it change based on what you're doing in a particular matchup, or how's that working out for the squad?
So we usually do a lot of team-wide communication. So usually when somebody's scared and doesn't want to take a fight, we usually just say, "Hey, we don't want to take this," and we just as soon as somebody says that, we usually back up as a team. With the exception of like if our jungler's in, and then obviously we're gonna keep him alive. I am currently the shot caller for bot lane, but I have a feeling that's gonna change in the near future. Akilo started off with some quiet calms because I think he was a bit nervous, but now that he's starting to get into his own, he's starting to talk more than me, which is pretty crazy. So I think that's gonna change soon.
So, is that just kind of historically across the board in the competitive teams, the tank player in the bottom is who kind of controls the flow of that bot lane, but kind of as the group as a whole, as they kind of come together throughout the later minutes of the game.
So I think it usually depends on the team. So there, I know some teams that whose jungler will call all of the shots and will do everything themselves. But I also know other teams that will have their tank call the shots, their support call the shots. It really is just dependent on who's the person that wants to talk and who has the information.
So as you're working through and you said, hey, right now we're kind of doing team-wide communication, has that led to any awkward communication snafus where, somebody says, hey, I don't want to go in here, but the rest of the squad is like, hey, we got to push, and you kind of have like a split effort that kind of bites you in the butt.
Oh yeah, for sure. There's a reason where we have the motto "Trust and Scolded." It's even if all four of us say that we want to leave, if Scolded says we're staying, we're not leaving. Like no matter what, if Scolded says we're staying, we are fighting to the death.
It's just the yeehaw button. Scolda gets to
Oh yeah,
slap it and then yanks everybody in. You love it.
100%.
And sometimes you just need that shut your brain down button, hit override, and getting everybody on the same page. And whether that's correct or not in the moment doesn't matter, because you're always going to stand a better chance doing it together than doing it split up, of course. And I think that's probably where that sentiment comes from. I kind of want to highlight, I haven't necessarily gotten to speak to anyone else on your team specifically. But I would love to hear a little bit more about your bottom lane dynamic. Akilo, you're bringing them to the fold. They're feeling great. Hammer that out. How's just the total dynamic between you, bot lane, attacker, and Aquila working out? Of course, the name is completely roasting me right now. Don't tell me. I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna find it.
All right.
Don't. I literally had this pulled up and I closed out of it as we got started because I'm a big doofus. Come on, Kirk. Muck.
Go
Good
ahead, I
Lord.
believe.
How could I forget Muck?
Yeah.
I forgot Muck again. This is the second time I've forgotten Muck literally on this show. I am the worst. Shout out to me. Muck, you're a legend. If you're out there, just please forgive me.
Oh, I mean, I don't particularly blame you because Muck is just now transitioning to attacker, so it's a bit of a weird spot for to think of him at, right? Because he's usually known as a Greninja player, but he's been adapting extremely well to the attacker position. I mean, he is probably the best Hoopa I've played with. He is a very, very solid attacker.
So you guys playing kind of, you guys have been working on the attack Hoopa composition then. So kind of like the support, pseudo support, Hoopa's actually getting in the cut there type action. How's that been working out?
It's been working pretty well. The nice thing is that it encourages a lot of synergistic plays where like everybody has to play together and use your cooldowns well. I don't know if you've ever played Overwatch, but it feels a lot like Goats to me, where abusing your cooldowns and using your cooldowns to protect each other is very, very important. And our bot lane synergy, going back to what you were talking about earlier, is actually very, very solid. We there's been moments where all of us have been at 1 HP in fights, and we've just won the entire lane.
And is that off the back of like the Hoopa portals back coming through with maybe some leaf tornadoes, cotton guards to get people out, or to the portal, that those types of maneuvers?
Yeah, it's just we're understanding each other's cooldowns well and understanding how we need to engage and communicating efficiently.
So bring us into the life of a competitive team here. Is that like the cooldowns? Is that type of stuff that you guys are constantly saying into the comms, or like you said, or as you kind of feel like you're alluding to, maybe you just have a little bit better sussed out between the players just naturally?
Uh, it's a little bit of both. So usually for I'm not sure about my teammates necessarily, but what I do on a personal level is I tend to hard focus on a specific set of cooldowns. So like for example, like hoop a trick. I always keep track of that internally, just so I know when it's available. Same thing with like Eldegoss Tornado and like Wiggly Sings or Slowbro Surfs. Those sort of things. Those are really, really important cooldowns. I'm almost always trying to keep track of those. Especially because I'm shot calling bot lane a lot. I have to know if those cooldowns are available to know if we can fight.
And that's probably kind of jumping way back why a tank typically steps into that role because their cooldowns tend to be one of the more initiating or action inducing ones between surf or like you said sing something like that. So even more impressive that you're kind of keeping track of all that while doing your role, and of course staying on that muck cooldown with the hoopa rings as well, or excuse me, trick, you said trick. um, Man, that's just something that seems insanely difficult, but that's why you're on a team, and I'm talking to you about it right now. How's Scrim's been going overall? You getting some good action, some good confidence building, or are there a couple teams that are punching some holes in the squad, putting you back to the drawing board?
Our scrims have been going pretty well so far. We've developed some very new and fairly unique strategies that are very applicable to our playstyle. And I think that's really surprising a lot of teams because a lot of teams are not really paying much attention to us. And then we come in with some weird strategies that have so far been extremely effective. And I think it's surprising a lot of people and it's making a lot of waves.
Is that a concern, tipping too much of your hand this early? Like I said, I mean, there's still 4 weeks to the qualifier, and then 6 weeks to the AOS Cup. Is that anything that kind of runs through your mind as you're getting ready to scrim teams, or is it all about, hey, we need to get the highest quality reps in with these strategies to actually figure out if they can work, and then we can think about, hey, how people adjust later once they know about it?
Well, right now the biggest thing is we need to understand what we want to do as a team and build our synergies and build our communication and stuff like that. Once we figure that stuff out, we can worry about those sort of things. And since oddly enough, we have the pleasure of not having to deal with any major tournaments for the next little while. So we actually get to experience and play out this meta and understand what it is before it changes. And then yeah, teams that are getting scouting information on us potentially, it's not going to matter because the meta is going to be different in probably 5 or 6 weeks when new heroes are released.
Great point. That's a very good point. So let's talk about, you just brought up new Pokemon being released. Let's talk about the latest one. The sentient water cooler. It looks like Duraludon. How is that made into the mix, if at all, for the squad? It seems pretty inflexive on team composition. Some people don't want to touch it at all. Some people are all about it. Where's Team TOS sit on it?
We're pretty big fans. If you've ever caught Skalda's streams at all, or really any of our streams, we have many a Unite Lights clip where we just explode entire teams with Duraludon. We're really enjoying this hero quite a lot. It really fits our playstyle so far.
Um, do you think there's any nerfs on the horizon for it? Do you think it's too strong?
I'd be surprised if it doesn't get nerfed. I think that Dragon Pulse is probably a bit overtuned. The fact that you can set up stacks on the entire team with your ultimate and press full heal so it can't be interrupted, and then just blow up entire teams with Dragon Pulse when you're ahead is it's very, very snowbally and very impressive.
Well, put the screws to people while you can. Seems like old Team TOS needs to find their way into some of these money tournaments throughout the week so they can beat the brakes off somebody and put a little money in the pocket to sustain yourselves through some of your scrimming sessions. Feppy, wrap up this conversation about your team here. Um, how much is first getting into the mix off the bench? Is that like a
Um,
whom you're facing type decision? Is it just like in case something happens type player? First is a quality individual, and I can't imagine you wouldn't use them if you have the opportunity.
it's frankly weird to even think about a player like First and call him a bench player. He's a very very good attacker, but he hasn't been getting in very much yet. But I've only been on this team for since what, Thursday, so it's only been about 4 or 5 days. Like it's not, it's a bit too early for us to really know how much he's gonna be playing and how much he's not gonna be playing because the roster's still very new.
Feppy, you're our third eye of truth in this bottom path here. You're the link in that we have. So I mean, you got to tell us what you can. What has first? You said they have played a little bit. What Pokemon have they been leaning towards when they've been playing?
So he's been filling for us for now. So there was a couple times where I haven't been around. He's been playing Eldegoss. There was a couple times where Scolded wasn't around, for example, and Mux shifted to jungle, and he would play like the Ninetales Hoopa slot sort of thing in bot lane. Sometimes the Pikachu, that sort of stuff.
Depending how the mood strikes you.
Hmm?
Which kind of brings me to the it's just you're perfect. You're leashing me along. It's a wonderful, wonderful situation here. I was just gonna say when people are taking time off or stepping away or can't meet the scrim days or whatever the particular situation happens to be. Is there a lot of VOD reviews going on? Like, let's say when First is stepping in for you as Eldegoss in that role, are you guys taking the videos or are you going back and seeing what the team did? Is there conversations around that stuff? Or is it kind of considered, hey, the full kind of team wasn't here. It's not necessarily worth spending too much time dissecting these particular games?
So even when, like, pretty much no matter what, there's always value you can get out of VOD reviewing. Worst case scenario, you can just get VOD review for your communication, let alone anything else in the game. You could literally turn your monitor off and still get value out of VOD reviewing. So no matter what, there's always going to be value there, and we pretty highly have valued VOD reviewing so far. We probably VOD review in rough estimate like an hour for every 6 or 7 hours of playing right now.
So are you guys, is there somebody just responsible for recording the audio video and then, hey, firing it up on a Discord call and just kind of going through it? How does the actual analysis of a VOD review happen? Is it, a stop and start pause? I didn't like this. I didn't like this. Oh, man. Team TOS coming through for this late night Unite Feppy.
Hey,
Sanji
thanks,
dropping the
Sanji.
noise. We appreciate the raid. Thank you so much. So speak to me about these VOD reviews as Sanji just propping up the squad here on Late Night Unite.
Yeah, so it's because we're a new team, we're still trying to iron out a lot of issues. Like, for example, sometimes we miscommunicate and we don't do things that like we are not on the same wavelength. So a lot of times our VOD reviews right now tend to just be us explaining our thought processes in the moment and understanding what our other teammates are thinking at the time and why we should be making one decision or another right now.
And is there somebody that kind of takes the lead of initiating those conversations, or is that just kind of another team wide? Let's come together, kumbaya, and get it sorted out.
Yeah, so before Scolded stepped into the starting jungler position for this team, he was the coach for the team as well. So he's responsible for most of that sort of stuff. And all of us players obviously can put in input whenever we need to, but he's usually responsible for running that sort of stuff. And we're gonna have to give Scolded a ton of credit for wherever we go because he is a fantastic coach.
Well, shout out to Scolded then. Here's a question. Scolded obviously pulling the trigger in the matches when they want the whole squad to go in. Obviously the coach in the VOD reviews, is there any merit to getting Scolded a whistle?
It might not be a bad idea.
You heard it here
Might
first.
not be a bad idea.
Scolded getting one shiny new whistle on behalf of the rest of the squad of Team TOS. We kind of talked about the path forward. We've obviously talked about where you have been personally. Are there any just individual aspirational goals for yourself, just whether it's in this game or kind of what you want to get out of it? It can be as aloof as just you want some chance at some cash, or maybe there's something a little bit deeper than that that's driving the old Feppy forward.
Yeah, so my overall goals in joining in joining this competitive scene is I've always had a long time personal dream of mine to win a world championship in video gaming. I've won a national championship in sports before, but that's not enough. I want to win a worlds. That's what I want to do.
You want to show everyone that Feppy will be on top for sure. And I think that's it's a lofty goal, but you gotta have good goals to strive towards. Otherwise, it becomes too easy and they're unsatisfying.
Yeah.
So I can sympathize with that as the day is long. Feppy, what's it going to take to get you there? Obviously, you've got a good group of folks around you. You got a solid squad. You got a coach that's getting a brand new whistle. You have the one of the best sixth man off the bench that you can have in first. So the team is sealed up. What do we need to do to deliver on that?
The biggest thing is we're gonna have to spend a lot of time practicing, and we don't have the luxury of teams like Team Gaming Gladiators, right? Who have been playing since the game launched, and they have all of those synergies built up over the course of time. We don't have the luxury of that sort of stuff. We have to build all of that synergy in a short amount of time, and then we also then have to catch up to them on top of it. So it's definitely going to be a long struggle, but we're all of us are willing to put in the hours, and we're willing to hard grind as much as we need to do in order to get there.
So follow up question then. We were talking about the AOS Cup. Is that are you considering that a short term goal, or is that a stepping stone to the larger goal? Because I mean,
It's
those are two objectively different things. They're two different considerations.
I mean, our goal right now as a team, at least from my perspective, is that we need to, at a bare minimum, get top four in AS, and I think we can win it. I'm gonna be honest. I think we do have a good shot, and the reason why is because we need to use AOS Cup because a lot of us have very very small amounts of qualifiers. Like for example, I didn't play in March qualifiers. So I don't have a ton of points towards the qualifiers. Most of my teammates also don't have a ton of points. So we need to perform extremely well in the AOS Cup in order to have a chance at getting into the final qualifiers for Worlds. So it's kind of a stepping stone, but it's the current most important thing. We have to win. We have to do extremely well in this tournament, or we're not going to have a chance at getting to the Worlds.
Yeah, and I know there's a lot of talk of the, kind of, we'll call it the last chance qualifier type situation that kind of sandbag you into that world's pool to qualify to kind of lock up one of the two NA spots. However, that path is a lot harder, and anyone can say that the more games you play, the more variety you throw into it, the tougher the road becomes. And you'd much rather do the work on the front end to be able to have time to practice and focus on something else on that back end rather than saying like, okay, we just fell short because we didn't perform as well in the AOS Cup. So now we need to go into this last chance qualifier because we can't just get the express lane to that, final 24 qualifying tournament. So path is not a lot harder. It's basically free. According to Goof, the path is free. I guess the sites from the top are a little different than maybe people still trying to figure out their footing right now. Oh man, Pete coming through too. Just the chat just getting lit up right now with people's opinions of how the tournament structure is laid out. Nothing any of us have any control of, so we got to play within the bounds that are given, of course.
And play with what we got.
That's right. And Feppy, you're framing it up to be pretty good. So AOS Cup top four, and the good thing about that particular event is it does come along with a little bit of money. And if there's one thing that Feppy has shown that they're good at is converting on the big money tournaments. Thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, based on my past experience, I've definitely been performing pretty well under pressure. I would say I think Shiny League and G4 were definitely my two strongest performances, and a lot of the smaller tournaments I tend to not perform nearly as well in because I don't know what it is. It's just a switch when everything gets crazy and money's on the line and we're against the top level teams on top of it. Just the switch just clicks. I just start firing on all cylinders.
So that's good for the AOS Cup, but what about like the April qualifiers that you need to go through to qualify for that? Are you going to find that switch and be able to flip it for yourself, or is all scolded and have to get in your ear with that shiny new whistle you're getting?
I mean, I mean, in my opinion, it's almost do or die for us because we have to show up. We have something to prove at this tournament, especially because we're a new roster. We have to show that we are a team to contend with at this next tournament. We need it is as much of it's proving to the world and proving to everyone else. It's also to prove it to myself and prove it to our team that we can and we will make it to Worlds.
Well, the confidence level is incredibly high. Team TOS does have their own Twitter account, so you're like halfway there to being just a sponsored team at this point. Any action on that front to get to get the official brand stamp on the squad, or is that so far in the rear view that you guys aren't even considering giving that any thought right now?
Well, we have not found anything yet, but we are definitely looking for any sponsorship opportunities that would pique our interest for sure. We are definitely looking around.
Okay, well that's good to know. Just on a just a heart to heart note, as just keeping an eye, keeping a thumb on what's going on in this community, because it is starting to gain steam in that particular vein. And if certainly if you all deliver at the AOS Cup, getting that top four, that win that you've been talking about, that should make it a little bit easier to get that name recognition out there, especially because
Hmm.
how important that is with how new of a team you are. Feppy, I've beat the brakes off you, kid. We've talked about this team a lot. We've talked about you quite a bit. We have just a bunch of viewers in the chat because the Sanji raid. Is there anything else that you want to just pump the tires on this squad about? I mean, again, kind of new to the scene, new amalgamation of players, and nothing can be left unsaid right now. You've only been there for a couple days, so walk us through just any final thoughts about the squad.
Uh, I mean, all I really have to say is I think our team as a whole is probably one of the most, if not the most, underrated teams right now. We're filled with a bunch of very underrated players, and I think a lot of teams are going to be surprised when they see us in the AFC Cup how strong we really are.
Love to hear it. I absolutely love to hear it. Feppy, I'm going to give you just another open floor moment here to plug, shout out, do whatever it is. It's, shout out, sell out, whatever you want to do. The floor is yours. Please take it away.
Of course. So if you guys want to check out some of my gameplay, I play a ton of support and ton of Eldegoss and Hoopa on twitch.tv/FeppyTTV. You can also find me on Twitter at FeppyTTV if you're interested in following me and looking at what I'm doing. And of course, obviously, follow Team TOS underscore on Twitter as well to get information on how the team is doing and what the team is looking forward to in the future.
Feppy, I can't thank you enough for taking the time out of your evening to join me on Late Night Unite and let me talk your ear off about yourself, but of course,
Of
the team
course.
that you're on and all those individuals that are in that basket with you. So I'm going to run through our stuff really quick before we go ahead and shut her down. Actually, I say shut her down. We might be back. We might be back with some Unite for Ukraine scrim commentary action. Still trying to sort that out. But anyways, thank you for watching Late Night Unite. They're Feppy, Doob Snacks, my PIC, partner in commentary, at Zoinkscasts on Twitter. So check them out. And of course, follow us at Unite Mics on Twitter. Subscribe on YouTube. Do all the stuff that helps us, helps you, right? We want to build a platform to showcase the wonderful teams and individuals in this community. So help us gain some traction so we can do that. So when you get on here, Sanji raids you and you get, 60, 70 viewers. People are starting to learn who Feppy is as if they shouldn't have known already. So, on behalf of Feppy, I'm Doob Snacks. Peace, love, and hugs. We will catch you next time, Late Night Unite, 11:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Tuesdays. Take it easy.